TYT Sports with the news of Brandon Marshall coming through today and a lot of excitement brewing out of Chicago. I bring in my former colleague at 670 The Score, Nick Shepkowski. Shep, how are you today?
I'm good. Big news out of the city, so I guess we'll get to that.
Well, tell me about it. I mean, firstly, I know you told me that you found out through Twitter. I also found out through Twitter. How big of a surprise was it to see and hear the Bears acquiring such a high-caliber receiver that they have not necessarily seen before?
Well, I mean, this is a receiver. You look in terms of talent. This is, as soon as he puts that uniform on for the first time in minicamp, it's going to be the most talented receiver to ever put on a Chicago Bears uniform. I mean, Brandon Marshall, the only other comparison you can make is a guy like Rashid Muhammad, who came in 2006, and he was 32 years old at the time. He was towards the back end of his career. Wasn't quite the same player he was at one time in his career. I mean, this is an absolutely huge splash. It's a move that Jay Cutler has wanted for quite some time. He's wanted a number one target. He loves playing with Brandon Marshall over in Denver when they had their years together there. He's obviously going to be very happy that Brandon Marshall and that trade comes through, and it just seems like for 2 third-round draft picks, seems like the asking price for Miami was very low.
I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, I read a tweet today that said it was highway robbery for the Bears to get Brandon Marshall for 2 third-round picks. I mean, how did this go about? Was it that the Dolphins simply didn't want him? Was it that they just wanted to get him out of town? Was he a clubhouse cancer, as some would say in the sports business? I mean, what was it? Why did they get him for what seems like peanuts?
I am not real sure how it goes about, how exactly that all breaks down. I mean, there were no even rumblings of it happening. It was kind of one of those things that a lot of people mentioned a couple of weeks ago. The tweets that went on between Brandon Marshall and Jay Cutler and how the two wanted to play together again, and it didn't end up happening right away, so people kind of, they want to play together, but maybe something happens. Nobody really took it that seriously. It was just kind of like two guys talking on Twitter to each other. Other than that, you didn't actually hear that there were talks or negotiations going on for a deal to be made. Instead, that's exactly what happened. There are a couple Miami guys that I found on Twitter, though, today, saying that the Dolphins had been looking to shop Brandon Marshall. That wasn't really reported too widely, so it comes as a big surprise, and that the Bears, a lot of people went into today thinking that the Bears were going to either make a play for Mario Williams, the defensive end from the Houston Texans, or that they were going to try and sign a guy like Vincent Jackson, and instead you get Brandon Marshall, who I think if you ask anybody around the league, that they'd be more thrilled to have Brandon Marshall than they would for Vincent Jackson, and for a team that, granted, their GM has changed with the firing of Jerry Angelo and the hiring of Emery, but a team that hasn't necessarily drafted that well for 2 third-round draft picks, I can't say enough how much of a steal this is for the Chicago Bears.
Third-round draft picks and draft picks, I mean, in the past with Angelo, they have, I mean, let's be honest, they've pretty much been shit in the first few rounds. I mean, in the past, I remember seeing Jerron Gilbert, Joaquin Iglesias. I mean, the first round has always been an Achilles heel for Jerry Angelo. The third round has been no better. Jay Cutler's influence, how much of that would you say went into this move?
I think that the Bears, no matter what, whether Cutler be there or not, whether Cutler say what he wanted or not, I think they were going to be the ones that they were going to make a play for a wide receiver. Now, you saw the franchise tag go on a guy like Dwayne Bowe. Marcus Colston worked out his deal with the New Orleans Saints right before free agency started, or the period opened this afternoon. But I think that Jay Cutler is somebody that he had made it known that he wanted another receiver, whether it be by comments he's made about receivers falling over and not being able to catch passes, or kind of just little things that you see if you follow him on Twitter, little things just like that that's saying, hey, it'd be great to play with Brandon Marshall. You think maybe it's just a joke to a certain degree, but obviously there's some rumblings beyond that, and the Bears were able to make that move. I think that's obviously somebody that Jay Cutler wanted on the team, but it's someone that around the NFL that you're stupid pretty much if you don't want a talent like that. I mean, Brandon Marshall, there is baggage that comes with him. You hear the story. Obviously some off-the-field issues with him, and dealing with some mental illness that seems to have been taken care of to some degree.
And his wife. Fully. And his wife stabbing him.
His wife stabbing him in the chest. Yeah, obviously, not to say there aren't red flags with Brandon Marshall that kind of make you concerned about, okay, was this kind of the kind of guy you want in a locker room, whether it be complaining about not being thrown to enough, things like that. but it's something that you have to be excited, because when you look at a team like the Bears, and so many people have wanted a real number one receiver, somebody that can stretch the field, that can make big plays on a regular basis, that can be depended on when the ball's thrown his way, Brandon Marshall's going to be that guy.